strong, he is fast, he has so much energy and excitement for the game of basketball.
Everybody keeps saying Damian Lillard is going to be traded to the Knicks.
Miami is the obvious one, and Bam is my dog.
Oh boy, things are officially getting very, very interesting in Portland. And I originally thought that this was going to be the situation we were going to find ourselves in, which makes Damian Lillard's situation not really complicated, but extremely awkward. So before we get to the content, we are still giving away $1,000 split between 5 subscribers that turn on our notifications on this channel. We're announcing the giveaway winner on the first day of free agency. And now that we got all that out of the way, do the intro. The NFL and NBA season are officially over, and I need something to hold me over until at least the NFL season comes back. So I've been playing prize picks for the WNBA and the MLB, and I've been fairly successful. It's a good way to get some extra action on games that I wouldn't really watch otherwise. I post my picks onto my Instagram story daily, and I've been hitting on a decent amount of them. And right now, when you use my promo code microphone, they'll double your deposit up to $100. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I wanted to start out this video by thanking you guys for the incredible draft stream we had yesterday. I mean, I think between the Chris Paul trade, our biggest winners and losers, and the draft stream in of itself, gained about 10,000 brand new subscribers, which is insane. I think that's a brand new record. And I wanted to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for your support in that draft stream. It had a lot of great moments and even some pretty interesting celebrity analysis, like this.
I can't go against Wembanyama. He is what he is. Right. But I tell you, I like dick.
But probably the biggest storyline in the NBA draft, the one that captivated me the most at the very least, was what was going to happen after Victor Wembanyama got selected with the #1 overall pick. Which, by the way, leading up to his selection, we truly saw some of the most interesting television that I've ever seen in the NBA draft's history. I don't think I'll ever delete this moment from my mind. Wham! B! Wham! B! I'm feeling it. I'm on fire myself. But following that pick was when things got really interesting. What were the Charlotte Hornets going to do with the #2 overall pick? Were they going to select Scoot Henderson, who was widely considered to be the best prospect following Victor Wembanyama in the entire NBA draft, but was a very interesting fit with LaMelo Ball in the backcourt? Or were they going to select Brandon Miller, a player that is being dubbed as the next coming of Paul George, who appreciates Paul George's game, who was already taking some interesting shots at Michael Jordan?
I actually don't think LeBron is, the go to basketball. I think my go to basketball is Paul George. I always grew up watching him, so.
Now, the Hornets would select Brandon Miller, which means that the Portland Trail Blazers got into a very ideal situation. A player that was widely considered to be the second best prospect in the entire NBA draft, arguably, fell right into their laps. A lot of people were saying that the
Charlotte Hornets essentially selected Marvin Bagley over Luka Doncic.
No, quite literally, we were getting that a lot in our draft stream. And hell, once the Portland Trail Blazers selected Scoot Henderson, this is what he had to say about the prospect of playing with Damian Lillard.
I think Dave should say it just because I think we combine our games, it'll be over. You know what I'm saying? We kind of complement each other's games. We're both fun to watch. So ticket sales go up.
Which kind of brought flashbacks to when the New Orleans Pelicans selected Zion Williamson. I believe Zion Williamson made a pitch to Anthony Davis to stay with the Pelicans just so they could see if it could work out between them. But at that point, Anthony Davis was already way too far gone. I believe this was even before Zion got drafted, if memory serves me correctly. Now, this is a very pivotal point in the Damian Lillard saga, because it seems like Damian Lillard has been quite literally delusional about the situation they're in, and it seems like the Portland Trail Blazers and Damian Lillard are in a toxic relationship and they're struggling to break up with one another, quite literally. I mean, look, you could be in a relationship with a woman and it could be a great relationship for a year or two. Maybe it's exactly what you need. Maybe you're there just to boost each other up temporarily. Some people come into your life and aren't meant to be there forever. Ideally, yes, but that's not necessarily the case for all people. Whether it's friends, whether it's relationships, whether it's business partners, there are times where where at some point or another, it's best to part ways. And it seems like the Portland Trail Blazers, for the sake of the analogy, have been cheating on Damian Lillard. How so? Because they stated in the past that they were doing their absolute best to build a contender around Dame. While they were doing this, they were making trades such as this: Norman Powell and Robert Covington to the Clippers for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a 2025 second round pick. This wasn't a move to contend. This was a move to get underneath the salary cap. That wasn't the only trade they made in 2022, by the way. They traded one of their franchise cornerstones, CJ McCollum, to the New Orleans Pelicans alongside Larry Nance Jr. and Tony Snell in exchange for Josh Hart, Thomas Satoransky, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Didi Louzada. Now, at least in this case, the Portland Trail Blazers would get a New Orleans Pelicans 2022 first round pick. But once again, this isn't a move you make if you're trying to contend. This is a move you make if you're trying to rebuild. This past trade deadline, once again, the Portland Trail Blazers made similar moves. They sent Josh Hart to the New York Knicks, and in return, they received Cam Reddish, Svi Mikhailuk, who he already left, and Ryan Arcidiacono. They got a first round pick from the New York Knicks in this instance. That's not a move you make if you're trying to make it to the playoffs. That's a move where you're taking on a young player that has potential, that hasn't necessarily had an opportunity to succeed in the situations he was placed in, for a player that is one of the better two-way role players in the NBA that quite literally helped his new team make it into the playoffs. They also traded Gary Payton II to the Golden State Warriors. This was a cost-saving move. After 15 games, they traded him away. The reason why I say that this is like cheating on Dame, it's like the Portland Trail Blazers are going to Dame saying,
yeah, we're gonna build a contender around you. We're not rebuilding at all whatsoever.
And then Dame says,
Hey, I'm gonna give the Portland Trail Blazers to build a contender around me.
And then the Portland Trail Blazers go and quite literally move any players that could help them make it to the playoffs in the present in favor for players that could help them out in the future, or as a cost-saving move. And to the Portland Trail Blazers' credit, I really think they did their best with what they had without making a horrible decision. I mean, they tried to trade for OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam. They signed Jeremy Grant last offseason. They signed Robert Covington 2 off seasons prior. Some of their decisions I wasn't necessarily on board with, but I'm assuming that was as a result of ownership wanting to avoid the luxury tax, which I could understand considering the fact that it's not worth this team paying the luxury tax. I mean, even the Golden State Warriors are starting to attempt to avoid the luxury tax as a result of them not being as competitive this past year. You don't want to pay luxury tax as an owner unless if your team is winning championships. And even then you might feel slightly uncomfortable for doing so. So I could understand why the Portland Trail Blazers made the decisions that they did, but this is also further evidence that the Portland Trail Blazers might need to make the biggest cost-saving move in their franchise's history by moving from Damian Lillard. But it seems like they aren't going to do it because at the same time, they're not being transparent with Damian Lillard. Dame has said that he wants to stay. As a matter of fact, Shams Charania said it on the Pat McAfee show the other day.
Has really left it up to Portland. He wants to be there. He wants that team to get better.
But yet, at the same time, Damian Lillard doesn't want to play in a youth movement.
You are in a situation they're just not going to be able to compete. The level of greatness, you've got to want to be in a situation where you're at least going for a championship.
But what's even more confusing about this situation is despite drafting Scoot Henderson and Damian Lillard not wanting to play in a youth movement, the Portland Trail Blazers want Damian Lillard to play in a youth movement?
Portland wants to keep building around Damian Lillard. They want to try to continue to make some moves here. I know teams who called Portland about Damian Lillard in recent weeks and this week and were immediately shut down. If he changes his mind, player asks out. Typically, organizations accommodate him.
So let me get this straight. Dame wants to play for a contender. The Portland Trail Blazers want to put a contender around Dame. But at the same time, they're making moves that imply that they're rebuilding, which is making Dame say,
I'm going to give Portland another chance to try to put a contender around me.
And Damian Lillard urging the Portland Trail Blazers to trade the number 3 overall pick for another player that could potentially make them a championship contender, which resulted in them selecting selecting Scoot Henderson, and now the Portland Trailblazers want Damian Lillard to play on a rebuilding team, which he doesn't want to do. You guys can see why I think this is such a bizarre situation, right? When Joe Cronin, the general manager of the Portland Trailblazers, was asked about whether or not he felt like he's in danger of losing Damian Lillard, this is what he had to say.
Still see Dame in our gym every day, or still meeting with Chauncey and I constantly, is because he wants us to work. He's bought in, he wants it to work here, and he's challenging us to get it done, which I think is more than fair, and he's earned that.
So according to Crispy Haynes, Damian Lillard has not had any communication with the Portland Trailblazers involving the draft, free agency, or his future. But at the same time, man, if you're the general manager of the Portland Trailblazers, what the hell are you supposed to do in this instance? What player in the entire NBA can you trade the number 3 overall pick for that would turn the Portland Trailblazers from a team that got the number 3 overall pick to instant championship contenders? There's none. There's no player that you could acquire that would turn the Portland Trailblazers into championship contenders. None. You could trade this pick for LeBron James, and I don't think they'll contend still. You could trade the pick for Steph Curry. I still don't think the Trailblazers would be able to contend. Hell, you could trade it for Zion Williamson. It'd be so entertaining, but it would not work. They would not win a championship as a result of that, which leaves the Portland Trailblazers with only one choice, and that's trading Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is coming off of the best season of his career. But even more importantly, Damian Lillard averaged 20 shots per game last year. This is terrible for the development of your young players. Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, and Cam Reddish aren't necessarily going to have the opportunity to grow as players when, one, they aren't going to be the top option on the team, and two, Damian Lillard is chucking up 20 shots per game. On top of that, Dame is entering his age 33 season. His trade value has never been higher than it is right now. You quite literally got Damian Lillard for the entirety of his prime, and he may have 1 or 2 prime years left, and you could get a team to quite literally give you like 3 first-round picks, another young asset, maybe a pick swap, and you could build around Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe moving forward. You could quite literally be what the Boston Celtics are currently, maybe 3 years from now, or what the Boston Celtics were in 2017 and about 3 years from now, which is not too shabby. I think if you do move on from Damian Lillard, as a whole, your team would be significantly better. It would be quite literally what the San Antonio Spurs did with DeJounte Murray when they traded him to the Atlanta Hawks, which resulted in them getting Victor Wembanyama and 4 additional first-round picks. Look, man, it's time to be realistic, and I don't understand why it's taking this long. It seems like Damian Lillard is quite literally delusional about the situation. I guess he would really like to win a championship with the team that drafted him. Maybe he saw what Giannis Antetokounmpo did in Milwaukee, and he wants to repeat that exact same thing. But hell, even Giannis Antetokounmpo might leave Milwaukee within a couple of years, and Giannis Antetokounmpo was in a significantly different situation than Damian Lillard is right now. With respect to Giannis Antetokounmpo, when he won his NBA championship, he quite literally only had to go through 2 teams. The only 2 competitive teams during his run to the NBA Finals in the Eastern Conference were the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. There weren't any other teams that were nearly as competitive that year. This isn't to discredit Giannis at all whatsoever. It's the fact that with the team that the Milwaukee Bucks had at that time, it was definitely possible that Giannis Antetokounmpo could win a championship with this team if they potentially made one nice move to really put a good team around him. And ultimately they did. The Drew Holiday trade worked out wonderfully for them. Dame isn't in the same situation here. Last year, the Portland Trailblazers tried to rebuild around them. They ended up with the number 3 overall pick. The year before, the Portland Trailblazers also tried to build a contending roster around them, and they ended up with another lottery pick. When you're contending with a star player on your roster and you finish with 2 top 7 picks, it's time to move on. And honestly, just like a relationship where it's time for the people involved to break up, there's going to be something significantly better awaiting you once you do break up. I promise you, man, because we all can look at this relationship between the Portland Trailblazers and Damian Lillard. It's been about 11 years at this point. It's time for a breakup, a trade to a contending team like like the Miami Heat or the Philadelphia 76ers. It's time to get some young assets back in return for Portland, and it's time for Damian Lillard to finally win a championship in a Kevin Garnett-like fashion. Minnesota doesn't resent Kevin Garnett for the way he left to the Boston Celtics. Damian Lillard's older than Kevin Garnett was when he got traded to the Boston Celtics to win his championship. You'll be celebrated by two teams by doing this, and Portland Trailblazer fans would hold nothing against you for it. In my opinion, it's time for Damian Lillard to scoot.
Why are you the way that you are?
Because it's Henderson's time. Oh man, that was so cringy. Please don't unsub. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.